Hello, my friend, and welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. As always, thank you for taking time to spend it with me today and my amazing guest. We know you have so many choices, and we just really appreciate that you're putting us in your earbuds today and taking a walk or doing the dishes, whatever it is that you're doing. We appreciate you. And today, you're in for such a treat. I have a wonderful guest on the podcast, as they're all wonderful, but I get to share with you a really cool person who we connected. And she's just been so wonderful and patient as it took time to get her on the podcast. And she's just been so wonderful. So I'm excited to have Lauren here today. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. And again, thank you for the patience because it's taken a little bit to make it work, but I just really appreciate it. And I've got a really fun question for you so that we can start out. I'm starting to ask everyone about personality types because we're all different in this world. And so we can't be categorized as a specific type. But if you know any of the types, like Enneagram or human
Mhm.
design, that sort of thing, would you be willing to share as you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Well, I'll start with my name. I'm Lauren Berlin. And here are some things I know about myself. I am an Enneagram Type 3 achiever. I would imagine that resonates with a handful of your listeners. In terms of astrology, my sun sign, I'm a Cancer, and my moon sign is Scorpio. So I have like a little bit of a double hard shell situation happening. And my rising sign is Capricorn, which I'm told by people who know more about astrology than me has a few things to say. With your rising sign being Capricorn, I think there's some connections to my achiever. My human design, I'm a generator. And then one of my favorites is it's always been something that stood out to me from my Clifton Strengths Assessment is that my top trait or whatever they call them is input. And that really resonates with me because I am just a constant consumer of podcast, audiobooks, information, and just like relentless curiosity about life and people. So I think that by way of introduction, actually, is kind of awesome. It tells you a
Yeah,
lot about me.
it really does. And I was just thinking like that idea of like input and curiosity and how much it connects to how before we hit the record button, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like you've lived three lives because you've had so many different job titles. And I only know a sliver of your story. So
Oh, yeah.
if you could give us I know it's really hard, but the brief overview, maybe some of the job
Hmm.
titles that you've held and also the hobbies too, because I think the
Oh,
swimming
yeah.
part is really, really cool.
Yeah. So, job titles. I'm a school and educational psychologist, and so I have across my life spent 2 decades working in public education. Along the way, I became a board certified behavior analyst, and so I love that. I'm an executive coach now, but I love bringing through my learning about human and child development. All adults were children once, so we've all gone through those phases. And being a board certified behavior analyst is really about understanding, the science of behavior, why it is that we do the things that we do, and how you can create lasting behavior change. So there's such an amazing through line to coaching, and so I bring that foundation with me every day. I've been a high school principal, and I grew up a competitive swimmer. I started swimming year round, I think when I was about 10 or 11 years old. Started 2-a-day practices in my early teens, and I swam all the way through college. I swam all 4 years at a Division I school, and so um, that has certainly informed who I've become as a person. So I've also lived in, I think, 5 states, 6 states,
Oh, wow.
and so my life has been, one of a lot of experiences. So yeah, thank you for asking. That's a little bit about me.
I love it. Thank you for sharing so much. And like I said, I feel like it's like you've done so much in this wonderful life that you're living. And so thank you for sharing just the snippet of that. And it's so interesting now talking through like personality types and now job titles and where you've lived and that curiosity seems to go all the way through and so much
Mhm,
of the achiever as well
mhm,
of, the competitive swimmer and then
mhm.
getting all of these different certifications, being the principal, now entrepreneur, helping others. It's just amazing to hear kind of how that has happened. And one of the things that really struck a chord with me, because it is something that I am very into, and I've never had someone on the podcast to talk about it, and I think you're the absolute perfect person to talk about it, is visualization.
Mm.
And I am just so curious. And maybe for the person listening, like we just describe what visualization is first and how
Yeah.
you look at it and how you've used it in because I know it like I think it started in the swimming days, at least from what I understand about your story,
Hmm.
but you've also carried it into other areas of your life. So if you'd be
Hmm.
willing to share.
Sure. I'm so excited to talk about this. So, in thinking about this conversation, really the earliest thing I can remember, and I'll tell this story to maybe help explain what visualization is. I think, honestly, I think I was 10 years old. And I
Wow.
remember we were with our coaches at a swim practice, and they had us all. I grew up in the Midwest, and so indoor pools. This is a side note, but just if I am in a building, a hotel, or whatever, and I smell like the indoor pool chlorine, I'm just like instantly transported
I
back.
bet you are. You're like
um,
doing laps in your
yeah, I'm
head,
like,
probably.
whoa, yeah, yeah. It's like it like cues a flashback scene, like in, like a montage flashback scene from an '80s movie. So they had us all like lined up in a hallway of like probably it was a high school, and they were having us think about whichever event we had an upcoming championship and the coaches were we were all I think like laying on mats like with our eyes closed, and this is really my first introduction to this, and I wish I could remember what my 10-year-old self was thinking, but it was
Yeah, I
probably like,
bet.
how do I even sit still for this long? So we're laying on mats, and they were reading like the times off, like, okay, for swimming, if your listeners don't know, you're on a starting block or you're in the water if you're going to do a backstroke event. And then they say, swimmers on your mark, get set. And then there's like a beep, a gun, a whistle, whatever. It depends on, I was born in 1980. So it's like more technologically advanced now than it
Right.
was when I was a young kid. So at any rate, and so then they were reading the times off and having you asking us to imagine, the race as like the time was elapsing.
Mm-hmm.
So when were you gonna touch the wall, or when were you gonna do a flip turn and start going back the other way? And so the sort of coach was holding the container for, the start of the race, and then setting some time marks, sort of counting, but asking each of us to sort of individualize and personalize that experience. And so visualization is really about letting your imagination, letting your mind consider how you can be experiencing an event. And it might be, it might be the sensory, like, what does this event feel like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? Where am I? And so it's really starting to, it's closing your eyes, it's shutting out the reality and the current state you're sitting in and really putting yourself somewhere else. So that is how I was introduced to visualization.
I love that story. And
Yeah.
I am now sitting here thinking how interesting this is because anytime I talk about visualization, which is not my area of expertise, but I love it and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's amazing, I always give Michael Phelps as the example because he's so open about visualization. And here it
Mm-hmm.
is. Like it
Yeah.
started with you as a swimmer at 10 years
Uh-huh.
old, probably for him too, because he and his coach, his Olympic coach, talked about it several times.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love those conversations of how he would not only practice the what he was doing in the water, but like if anything went wrong,
Mm-hmm.
like the goggles
Mm-hmm.
filling up or whatever the thing is.
Yes.
And I just think that's so fascinating. So maybe it's a swimmer's thing. Like the coaches really encourage
I
this.
don't,
I love it.
yeah, it's so funny. And I mean, one of the things for me is, and I think it's really important because it's what I wonder or what I imagine is true for people, right? Is when you hear something like you should do mindfulness or like you should
Mm,
try visualization, like it's like maybe I don't quite understand what all that is, or that feels like maybe too overwhelming, or I'm not sure I have time for that. So they can
mm.
feel like these like big ideas, and not all parts of visualization actually work for me. So like if
Oh,
I were to take that example back, for me, what ended up becoming a tool that I used, like, from this 10 years old moment, like well through, my college career, for me, really tapping into my body sensations, like what I wanted to feel like,
mm-hmm.
was a lot more powerful for me than maybe imagining, you know, um, a heated race, right? Or like
Oh,
how, like I can see the other competitors and I'm gonna, need to, whatever, push harder or, you know, for me, it was really what worked for me the best was about, how is it going to feel like? How strong are my legs going to feel when I'm diving off the block? What's it feel like when I enter that, like when you first enter the water, or how do I imagine my arms like feeling like they're really like gliding through the water, like not feeling resistance. And so, there's not one right or wrong way to visualize, but there are the ways that are uniquely impactful for you. And
mm,
so, for me, I know that really thinking about like what am I feeling in my body is something that's really powerful for me. And even still, like when I think about stress management in my day to day life, or managing overwhelm, um, tapping into like where am I feeling that in my body, how can I imagine that dissolving, disappearing, like
mm.
relaxing if it's tension. Focusing on the body sensations is just personally something that really works for me, and so there's just so many ways to do it, and I think that that's a really important piece to highlight.
I think so too. Thank you for bringing it up that we're all so different. Every
Mm-hmm.
one of us is so different, and how what works for us may work for someone else and may not. And I love, love, love that you brought it up because I always like to tap that on to like everything I say is like, I'm going to tell you what worked for me and why, and then you find what works for you using that same concept. And
Mm-hmm.
so the visualization, I think, is a perfect example. And I remember when I was first trying to understand visualization, because it was years ago, and I saw it talked about on in a documentary, and it was like this, it was very clear to me in this moment of like, oh, this is powerful. And so I was like, I'm going to try it. Because I mean, I love studying successful people at any level, whatever, however they define success. And I love just seeing like, how does this work? And so many people were talking about visualization. So I was like, well, if all these people are doing it, I need to try. And I walked up to my husband after I tried, right? And I said, I can't see anything. I shut my eyes and I can't see anything. I don't think I can do it. So then I took to Google and was like, is it possible that I can't actually see when I close my eyes? Because I was like, maybe something's wrong with me. And so to your point, I always like to add on, like it's just different for everyone. And I have also found that the body sensations, that is an easier way for me
Mm-hmm.
to tap into that versus like I visualize what the stage looks like when I'm on it, if I'm thinking about speaking or something. And that's very hard for me to do. So, what I've learned to do, if it's a speaking engagement, because sometimes I like to visualize speaking engagements before I do them because I think that's
Mm-hmm.
fun and powerful and very helpful for me, is if I can find a picture of the place before, I look at the picture of like, oh, the room, the stage, the whatever. So I don't have to like force it into my brain to like make it
Mm-hmm.
up.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a great example because you wouldn't even necessarily like closing your eyes might not even be something you need to do.
Mm,
Maybe in looking at that picture of the venue, you can imagine then your body on the stage, right?
mm-hmm.
And then it might be about how do I want to, you know, I imagine, even though I know you're a seasoned speaker and it's something you do a lot, that there's like always still a sense of nerves.
Always,
And
which
so,
I never want to go away because I think
yes.
like, and at least for me, it means I care. And
Yeah.
if
Well, it's
that goes
adrenaline doing
away,
its job.
yeah,
Yeah.
like if I don't care, oh my gosh, what's going on? If I don't care about what I'm saying or the people
Right.
in the room or, so I actually enjoy the fact that that happens to a certain
Hmm.
degree, but I don't want it to take over. So I think that's where, to the point of visualization, it's like I'm going to control my breath
Hmm.
and I'm going to be okay, and then present in a great way.
And I could see that being the practice. It's looking at that venue, and then it's like taking those, like mentally taking those steps out,
Hmm.
feeling, I do, we laugh because I'm wearing blue and I'm a swimmer, and
It's beautiful on you.
I oftentimes, water is like often a powerful visualization
Yes.
for me. And even thinking about this podcast today was like, how do I want this to feel? Like, what kind of energy do I
Mm,
want to be bringing? And I was like, I just want, when you're like floating in salt water, how you're like a little bit buoyant, like
yeah.
that's the feeling I want to have. So I didn't necessarily have a mental picture in place
Mm,
of what, what today might look like. But I did have this thinking about like, how do I want to feel? And I want to feel buoyant and I want to feel light, and where you just kind of like go with the flow. And so, like these are things that we often do, like kind of in our day to day practices. And
hmm.
so I think there's probably not many people out there who have never visualized before, but they might not
Right.
have called it that. And so I think talking about all the
Mm,
different ways, in these like little like bite snack size,
mhm, mhm.
that people can really, take the opportunity to consider. Maybe I have been visualizing all along and I didn't know
Right.
it. And or maybe there is a way for me to tap into some playfulness around it. And I think that's
Mhm.
actually something that's really important to me. Is, I don't know, our lives are so structured. Like being a grown up is so boring, right? Or it can
Yes.
be. And there's the things we have to do and the people we need to be responsive to. And so, I think visualization, like these are moments to actually like bring some playfulness into your life, and be creative. Which we used to have lots of time to do when we were children, and we just lose that over time. And so for me, I also think about it as a connection to an opportunity to like be a little creative and be a little playful.
That's a great way of looking at it. And I really like how you said a lot of people probably just realized, oh, I have visualized before, but I just didn't call it that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and I should have thought of that too. When I had that aha moment of, oh, I should do this. And then I tried to make it so serious and sit and like just be silent with myself and like all of a sudden visualize something like that. How did I think that that was going to happen? And then I felt like I messed up in some way. So it was like I did that all to myself. No one did this to me. I did it all to myself. But I appreciate because I hope someone just heard that today and is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is much lighter than
Yeah,
the super serious thing that I thought it was.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
And maybe just an opportunity to share another example. I mean, I have two young kids. They're elementary school age, and this is something that I use with them a lot because I this is it's true for adults too. Like, but kids can have a hard time talking about their feelings, right? So
Mm,
I, as a parent, like I can notice something's off. Like you're maybe a little grumpy, you're maybe a little irritated, something maybe is bothering you, or at least like that's my sense of it. But
hmm.
I've asked, and they like can't tell me, won't tell me. Always, that's always hard to
Right.
say. And so being a little bit playful about it, it has been really, really helpful. With both of my kids, one in particular, but where I'll say like, "Hey, you brought a grumpy cloud in here with you. Like,
Oh,
what's up with that?" Like, right? And then you can picture, like the whatever, like Pigpen with the dust cloud. Like, he like comes in with like this little like cloud of like whatever consternation. Like, and I'm like, what's in there? Because if I ask him like what's wrong, he can't
right.
answer that, right? But if I'm like, what's in your grumpy cloud? Or like, maybe could you draw me a picture? And like, we'll do like a little stick, what's in there?
Mm.
Um, Sometimes I'm more directive than that. Like sometimes like the funk is irritating everyone in the house, right? Like the
Right.
grumpy cloud is infecting the whole house. And it's like, what do you need to do to pop that bubble right now?
Ooh.
And so I don't, and because I don't know what it is, but maybe he
Mm-hmm.
does, right? Um, and so like then we can kind of play around with like how can you pop that bubble? Both I have two sons, they're both boys, so it like very quickly oftentimes goes to potty humor. It just does. And this
Yes.
is this is my life now. But my little one will be like, I'm gonna go flush mine in the toilet. And I'm like,
Oh
I
my
love that.
gosh.
Like, you know what?
That's so
Actually
funny.
flush it. Like that's great. Let's
Yeah.
leave that there and let's move on. So but like grown-ups can do these things too. And so I mean, I think another example I've used before is like when I'm really feeling a thing for me is like when I start to get overwhelmed, like I feel it in my nervous system big
Mm-hmm.
time. Like just like I start to literally feel like a frayed electrical wire, like
Mm.
just like that, like energy, but it's like not in control. Um, and so and so imagining that that's like how my like so when I start to feel right, like I might feel off, I might feel like irritated, I might be like hearing myself be like snappy with people.
Mm.
Um, and then I'm like, okay, that's I know a cue for me to like check in. Because like something's off with my body right now. And then I can imagine like, okay, this is like I'm feeling like whatever, like silly putty that's pulled too
Mm.
thin and has holes in it, or like that, kind of like frayed edge, of a rope or of a wire. Um, that's not where I want to be. And so, you can't necessarily like put the silly putty back together, but what do I need to do? Right. Like, this is where I'm at right now. I can see this, like, I can imagine it looking like, these things that are stretched too thin or are starting to break.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I take some action, right, to like change my state? And so I really do bring like that kind of visual thinking
Mm-hmm.
into so many parts of my life.
Right. I love all these examples, and I am going to take this and start asking myself, like, to draw a picture of the
Mm-hmm.
feeling or whatever. I think that'll really help me. I am also similar to you in that I am a type 3 on the Enneagram. And let's see, what else do we have that are the same? I also love a lot of input as well. So I'm with
I
that.
mean, you do a podcast, so.
Right. Right. And so I love giving it too. It's like, oh, I got to have more. I think I was telling you before we hit record, I was like, I feel like I could do more podcast episodes. So there's all of that. But that idea of the stretched too thin, silly putty, like that idea, that made it so, not to use the term here, but visual
Mm-hmm.
of what the feelings look like. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious how you've taken that into, because you said you use it in all areas of your life, and maybe it's not just visualization, but it's this idea of understanding your body, your needs, your
Mm-hmm.
unique schedule needs, all of those things of like, how have you taken this into entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
And when it comes to setting a goal, holding yourself accountable, because as you know, that's what we talk about here. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's the tool. How have you applied it in a way that has helped you follow through when things get really tough?
Mm-hmm. Um, so I'm looking up, I'm thinking, I have like always two or three things popping into my mind.
Tell us all of them. It's fine.
So I think there's how I use it, but then if I can, I'd love to start with an example that I used like in more of a coaching
That would
context.
be
And
perfect.
so,
Hmm.
because it's the challenge that the individual was facing was one that is like just so applicable to all of us
Hmm.
every day, whether we're working with a coach or we're not. And,
Right.
and really it was about, um, someone who is in a day job in a 9 to 5,
Mm.
and there was a lot of like stress and stuff going on with that, but this person also has like some creative endeavors that they're pursuing, like side hustle, and just feeling like totally blocked because the daily stressors were so overwhelming that there wasn't any, she couldn't tap into like any of the like strengths that she has in this like creative space. And so we were having a conversation about that. And what, as I, when I'm serving as a coach to people, I really sit back and I'm actively listening, but more than listening to words, like I really am watching body and facial expression. And so those are really cues I look for also, because you can't see them in yourself. That's one of the things
Right.
that I love about being a coach is giving that feedback. And I'm like, wow, your shoulders just like dropped. What did you feel that? Like what happened for you in that moment? So these things can happen.
I love those moments too. I
It's
just
so
have to
good.
say, isn't it great as a
It's
coach?
so
Like,
good. Yes.
thank God for Zoom because
Yes.
I mean, if we were just on the phone, we would not be able to
Yeah.
see these things. But I
I
can like
know.
sometimes see people like lean forward
Yeah.
or like creep back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing what you can
It's
see,
so
but you
cool.
can't see it in yourself. That's why I'm sure you have
No.
coaches too. Like I have
Yep.
coaches to help me see
Yep.
these things
That's right.
for sure. So sorry to interrupt your
That's right.
story. I
No,
just wanted
no,
to say I
it's
love
true.
that too.
But it's a common, right? I'm so overwhelmed in my day to day, whatever
Mhm.
that is, that the thing I'm excited about or often excited about or love to do, like I just can't get there. So there's just this block between sort of where I am and where I want to
Mhm.
be. I think like that's the crux. And so I just started thinking about like, it sounds like she can't get to flow, like into that space where the creativity, like I was imagining, right? Like the visuals I was receiving as she was talking were like blocked and like tight, and that there wasn't that like openness and flow and creativity. And so I asked, like, what does that look like for you? Like when you're in flow, like when you're in that like creative space, like what comes to mind? And this was a text conversation, keep in mind.
Oh,
And she sent me back a dolphin emoji. And I was like, cool. Say more about that.
yeah.
um,
I'm gonna need some
and
more.
and the conversation ended up taking this total shift from like stress, block, like just total overwhelm
Mm,
into when I'm at my best, I feel like this, playful energy. And then it, was like I'm on a boat and there's like just,
mm,
there's a great playlist on and there's just like we're on open water and there's a sunset. And so getting into, and not like how do you imagine? So I think, and this is a recommendation I want to make in terms of visualization, they weren't imagining the perfect work session. They
mm.
weren't visualizing a way to deal with, the complexities of their, the obstacles that were happening in their day to day. And they weren't imagining the most productive creative session, right? What instead was like, what it turned into was this activity in what does flow look like for you? Like
Mhm.
when you're at this like place where you feel open and creative, where are you? And that mindset shift. So then the
Mhm.
conversation got even more fun. So it was like, okay, like, so how do you bring like, do you have a pineapple or like, can you put an umbrella in
Uh,
your drink? Like, how can you bring some like actual tactical maybe cues? Like what playlist can you put on?
mm.
Like how can you like, I mean, I don't think they're a boat owner, but like, so like,
But you could
um,
go to a boat place and sit in a
so like
boat or
how,
something, like
yeah, like
figure it
what
out.
are the things that you, right? So you maybe can't make that entire like vision come to life at
Right.
8 p.m. on a Tuesday, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? And so what
Yes.
is, and just, I think, my experience in through this conversation with this person was like their whole mindset from like the heavy tone of ugh, and like everyone listening to this podcast knows what I'm talking about. Like
Yes.
it feels so heavy. You're like ugh, and I'm so bogged down.
Mhm.
The entire like I think like genuinely a weight lifted in thinking about like what's my optimal like condition? And then and then it got even more fun, right? Like how could, again, like it's 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. I don't know if it was or if it wasn't. I'm just
Right.
saying that
Right.
right now. But like it's 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. What aspects of that? Like I'm not in Hawaii or the Caribbean or wherever, and I'm not on a yacht. But what can I bring in right now to just like help remind me, like be like a tactical or a visual reminder today and at work tomorrow when inevitably things might get heavy again. Like,
Mhm.
can I change my screensaver? Right? Like, again, can I,
Yeah.
can I keep a playlist in the background? Like, can I have a candle that like reminds me of what, like, and
Hmm.
maybe for somebody else, it's like, it's the woods. And so there's like a, there's like a cedar
Hmm.
candle, something. So how can you bring those threads that assist you, like they're tools, right? In tapping into those spaces where you want to be.
That is fantastic. And I just wrote something down that I feel like is the mic drop moment of this
Oh,
podcast episode.
yes.
And it is not all or nothing.
Hmm.
It is not that. And so in those moments where we all of us do this of like it's like this where we think that it does have to be all or nothing, where it's like
Hmm.
I'm sitting in an office and but I want to be doing this other thing and it's like but I can't, that isn't my reality, whatever it is. Or someone listening is like I want to launch that course or start that podcast or whatever it is they want to do, and it's like, well, it doesn't have to be done in the next 30 minutes,
Hmm.
but what can you do in the next 30 minutes that could help you get one step closer is kind of what I'm
Totally.
hearing. And I
Hmm.
love bringing in the senses into
Hmm.
that. So
Yeah.
that is a fantastic idea.
And that's obviously big for me. Like I think that's
Yeah.
come up a couple of times. And I think that's where we're all so different, right? And so for some people, maybe they do have that, like you and I both clearly don't have, like that really strong way to see it. But
Yeah.
some people do.
Yes. I'm
Um,
jealous of those people.
yeah. But they might be jealous of the fact that you can smell it or feel it,
Mm,
right? And
true.
so there's all these different ways, and there isn't, in the same way that it's not all or nothing, there isn't a right and wrong way to do
Mm,
visualization.
that's beautiful. I love it. I feel like I could talk to you all day, but I need to respect your time on this interview time. But what I want to hear a little bit more, because I know people are going to be so interested, is how you work with clients. Because you're an
Mhm.
executive coach, which is really cool, and you're working with really ambitious people. So I'd love to
Mhm.
hear about how you take what you know from all of your life lessons and how you bring it into your coaching. And if anyone is listening, how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the clients that feel like I think a great fit on both sides, like most of my clients are in that like messy middle second
Mm,
act of life, where life has really ramped up. Like maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a caregiver for your parents, maybe you're both. Your career has been, lifting and launching, and there's there's this sense of like I've been aiming for more, better, bigger,
mhm,
faster, and like, or I'm here and like this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or that more, bigger, better, faster. Like I actually, that's kind of not quite it anymore. Like, and
mhm.
so, um, I'm really seeing. I shared I was born in 1980, so I'm about to be turning 45, and I'm really seeing a lot of my clients in this like mid 40s to mid 50s decade be like, things have shifted in a way I couldn't have ever expected because I haven't ever been here before.
Mm,
And I I want to reevaluate. Like there's a sense of I think kind of tapping back into like what are my priorities now? How might they have shifted, and how do I really make those adjustments? It might be fine tuning. It might be a major rehaul, right?
mhm.
To make sure that all that momentum, right? I work with a lot of people who are achievers, high performers, firstborn like me, um, athletes, like all those things. And so, and whether it's about perfectionism as a barrier, or just like I there has to be more.
Mm-hmm.
Or I want there to be more, but in a way I couldn't have imagined before. And so that's the work that I love to do, and it's really in transforming. And I've lived that myself. And I mean, I think my past 3 to 4 years have been such a journey, and through my own therapy and coaching, and really stepping into this entrepreneurial journey, which is never something I would have imagined for myself, but has been just an amazing thing. Like, it's been exactly what I didn't know I needed. um,
Oh, I
and
love
so
that.
I, and I think that's the beauty of coaching, right? Because you coach
Yeah.
people too. And so um, and I think this is where, and I'm going to go back to swimming, what I love about coaching, or the analogy that I would use, and you talked about Michael Phelps, people who compete at these elite levels, they've been doing it for decades. They do it 5, 8 hours a day. It's their job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they still have coaches. And the reason is, even though they could write their own workouts and they can coach other people, right? You
Right.
can't see yourself. You can't fine tune your own swimming while you're doing it. And that's what executive coaching is like, right? It's the ability to have someone else listen and see you and hear you and reflect those things back so that you can, next level yourself, right? In the same way that athletes coaches allow them to do that. So it's really not about telling you what to do. It's about giving you the opportunity to take those, maybe make those adjustments and those fine tunements that you could have never seen on your own.
Beautifully said. Your clients are very lucky to have you, and I know
Oh,
people are going to
thank you.
want to reach out. So tell us where everyone can find you online.
Sure. My website is the best place. It's laurenberlincoaching.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Lauren Berlin. There are not too many of us, or at least one or two other Lauren Berlins, but Lauren Berlin Coaching on LinkedIn as well.
Wonderful. And we'll make sure to have the links in the show notes. Lauren, thank you so much. And
You're
I just really
welcome.
appreciate you being here. And I love to give everyone a next step, because
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those things where it's like we love consuming information, but
Uh-huh.
we
Uh-huh.
have to take action with it too. And so I'm curious what your next step you would encourage everyone to do after just learning about
Mm-hmm.
visualization and making things happen.
Have fun.
Mm,
Just do it. And it's about progress. It's never about perfection.
wonderful. Just do it. Listen
Just do
to
it.
her, everyone.
Just do it.
Listen
And
to
have
her.
fun. Like, have
Yes.
fun.
Have
Have
fun
fun.
with it. I think that's so much fun. And I hope everyone sends us messages and tell us what they
I
do
would
with that
love
idea.
that. That would be amazing.
Yes. So I'll make sure everything is in the show notes. Lauren, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you. And for everyone listening, thank you for spending your time with us today.
Mhm.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and keep being accountable.